Hello, everybody, and welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name's Tony. Thank you for joining us live. If you are joining us live, if you're catching us on the replay, then thanks for taking the time. Here at Star Trek New Worlds, we are a turn-based, a live stream of a turn-based strategy game that we play using the Federation and Empire rule set as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau. We use Vassal as a way to be able to show you the map, which we'll see in a second. And of course, we play this online, live streaming it to you to share the story, the narrative, and all the fun that we have in the game as we go. If turn-based strategy, Star Trek, or all things sci-fi is something that you'd be interested in, then please consider sticking with us for this live stream, hitting that subscribe button, or if you feel inclined to support the caffeination of this host, then please feel free to hit that coffee down on that corner over there at coffee.com/newworlds. All right, everybody. Welcome to today's live stream. Interesting that today, or that the notification for this went up a little bit late. It went up this morning on Saturday morning as opposed to normally on Friday night. Why was that? Well, there was a bunch of stuff going on in the back end, so to speak, battles being resolved, things that were going on. And of course, when you saw that thumbnail clearly indicates what's going on. Didn't want to reveal that too soon, so that notification came out a little bit late. So interesting. Today we're going to be talking about, well, let's get into what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the Klingon-Romulan War. What? The Klingons and the Romulans are fighting? Yes, it's true. Why is that happening? Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. And who's going to win? Well, I think we know what I think. But we'll see. We'll do a quick little analysis and see how things are going. Also, we're going to do, of course, the round-the-clock turn 49 map reveal with one exception. At the time of this broadcast, I don't currently have the Tholian Federation or Lyran map. So, if our good GM happens to pop on this live stream while I'm live and you want to send it to me and then let me know that you have, then I will be happy to pull it up and we can go over it. But as of right now, I have only just what we'll call the Fertile Crescent, which will be the new name for the map as it is described now. Basically, all the player factions except for the Tholians, the Federation, and the Lyrans. So we'll go through that and see how that goes. The good thing is it's only one map, so that'll be sort of fun to go through. Other than that, let's check in with our live stream crew who are in the chat right now. So we can see that, and we had a little joke around this, sort of mixing our Star Wars metaphors, our star sci-fi series metaphors, Star Wars and Star Trek, of course. We had a thing about Red Squadron checking in. So we see Bill with Red 4 checking in, lock those foils into attack position, switch deflectors to full, front facing, and be careful out there. Well, I mean, it is a hot war that's about to go down between the Romulans and the Klingons, so we will see how that goes. We've got Paul, of course, Bill, Jim has arrived. Charlotte, by the way, Charlotte is our newest subscriber. Thank you so much for joining us, Charlotte, and thank you for subscribing to the channel. Very much appreciate it, and a pleasure to have you here. Jim and Paul, of course. Sinister 7, the GM said. Oh, Sinister 7. I like that. Okay. Well, without further ado, let me take a sip of my highly caffeinated beverage here and then work our way towards the map. All right. As we can see here, we have the beginnings of what will be the Sinister 7 or the Fertile Crescent, however we want to describe it. I want to see your votes in the chat. Sinister 7, put a 7 in the chat, or the Fertile Crescent, put a C, I guess, would be the best way. Crescent for C, 7 for the Sinister 7. You tell me what you like, and we'll see how that goes. All right, let's start off with this map. I'm going to be just looking off to the side because I have it off to the side here. Let's do a quick round the clock as we can, before we sort of get into all the nitty-gritty of what's happening with everyone. All right, let's start with EP. Of course, my eyes can't seem to find the button. All right, so EP we have here. You can see it over my head. We've got the Carnavan at 33, the Gorn at 30.5, the Hydrans at a smooth 34, the ISC 35.5, the Klingon Empire at 36.5. That's a real 36 this time. So Klingons at 36.5. The Paravians, that's just a minor faction. The Riemans at 34, and the Romulan Empire at 31.5. All right. So because we've got everybody on the same map, we might have to come back to this again just to kind of double check. But as you can see here, based on the Fertile Crescent, or the Sinister Seven, we've got everybody over the 30 mark. We've got the Gorn and the Romulans just over 30. We've got the sort of the Riemans, the Hydrans, the ISC, the Carnavan, all floating in the same around number range, and then the Klingons there as well. Yeah, it's the real number. Okay, let's take up the fleet cap, as we can see it here. All right. Here it comes. Fleet cap in full effect and stereo sound. Now, thank you, Jim, for stomping your Klingon faction so I don't have to do math on the fly. Very much appreciate that. And we'll get into his extermination efforts in a moment here. As we can see here, the Carnavan had 36 ship equivalents with an 80-165 split. Very, very potent. They just recently dealt with the Juggernaut faction, so we'll go over that in a moment. We have the Gorn with 25 ship equivalents with that 51-02 split. Now, we've already talked about the Gorn and their struggles with the W era technology and how they're building out their Y fleet. So we'll address that as we go into their faction. The Hydrans at big 41 ship equivalents with an 86-164 split. Interesting to note, eh? Can you hear that accent? The Carnavans at 36. A total of 5 ship difference, and they have practically the same attack and defense factors as the Hydrans. Interesting to note. The ISC have 27 ship equivalents, and again, 83-136. So they have, 2/3 of the ship equivalents to the Hydrans effectively, and yet they have similar attack and defense factors. I mean, less on the defense factors, but they're still punching in the same weight class when it comes to attack. The Klingons have now 37 ship equivalents. Goodness gracious. And they have a 94-153 split. Interesting. We'll go over that in a moment, what's going on. The Lyrans, well, of course, we don't have the Lyrans on the map other than sort of an errant ship. Let's go to the Paravians, the Riemans with 47 ship equivalents. That's 10 more than me. Wow. They have 141-194 split. That is just amazing. I'm a big Riemann fan, as you can probably tell. And last but not least, we have, I guess we've got the Romulans with 36 ship equivalents, a 69-138 split. They've got their ship numbers in the right ballpark, but this is similar to what the Gorn are facing. They have this W era tech deficit that we'll be going over as we cruise through the map. All right. Okay, so this is going to be very, very interesting. Let's start with, we're going to start at the top, work our way to the bottom. For those who are just sort of joining us, so Charlotte, if you have not seen the map, or anyone else who hasn't seen the big picture map, I'm going to just move my head here to the other side. All right, you can see that the map is this fertile crescent, I call it the fertile crescent, this crescent shape right now. We've got the Riemans at the top, followed by the ISC, the Hydrans right here, the Carnavan in this area right here, the Klingons down below, the Romulans, and then the Gorn on the side. And I'll just slide that over. Well, I guess I can't really slide that over because it's based on where the screen is. Okay, so we can see that. That's kind of what the map looks like on the big picture. Let's zoom back in and we can talk about the Riemans. I'll move my head to the other side. Here we go. All right, so let's talk about the Riemans and what's going on their side of the map. So first of all, let's take away the ships, all that noise, and we can see what's going on here. All right. The Riemans continue, again, I'm looking at this map first time, just like you are. So we can see that the Riemans are expanding their borders. They've got this sort of highway of exploration going on in this top corner here, as well as working out the sort of the last bits of the top end here as they expand their borders kind of southwesterly and westerly, which is interesting. If we bring back the ships real quick, we can see what's really pushing that exploration is this convoy here. This convoy is providing extended supply to, for example, this guy here and this guy here. Now, here's an interesting thing, and we'll have to talk about this as players in the game going forward. If you look at the supply based on this base, the supply based on this base is assuming that they have supply 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It goes as far as this Orion base. Now, the Remans have discovered this resource here. However, it is outside their fixed supply. So fixed supply versus this extended supply. What do I mean by that? When you have planets or bases or other fixed locations that provide supply to your units, that's your fixed supply. And based on your supply tech, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever that is, that's the range at which you provide that supply. When you have units that are providing the tug mission of extending the supply, that's when they sort of extend it by that amount again. So from their location, they extend it 3, 4, 5, 6 hexes, whatever your supply tech is. In this case, it would seem, and I'm not 100% certain, but it would seem as though the Y convoy is extending supply beyond what the reach of that YBS is in the India column. Now, here's an interesting little trick that might get around it. If the Riemans have an arrangement with the Orions, which are the blue guys there, because there is a base right here, then if they have a arrangement with the Tholians, then the Tholians could be offering them or giving them extended supply. And if that was the case, then in that case, it would be a location of fixed supply and the Riemans would have access to that resource. But the big thing is if you have you might be able to hear my kids screaming up top. Extended supply does not give you access to resources because that supply moves potentially. Whereas the bases being fixed supply do. And so that's sort of the difference, or at least that is how we've played it in the past. Of course, in this, Daniel is now our GM, and our GM will make a call on this, but I am just sharing my perspective based on past experience of these past campaigns that we've played. So we'll see how that goes moving forward. Other than that, we can see that the convoys are in place to be able to, of course, build bases, as we can see here, and probably extend their supply continuing towards the west. Now, the west is where, as the Pet Shop Boys say, go west. That is where we're going to find the Lyrans here in a moment. And I just got a ding on my wonderful phone indicating that our GM Daniel has emailed me the map, so I'll have to go back to that in a moment. But let's finish with the Fertile Crescent first. All right, so that's the Riemans. And one of the things that's really interesting about the Riemans, we know that the Riemans have this massive fleet, right? They've got the most number of ships. They have the highest attack to defense factor distribution. They have one of the strongest economies in the game, keeping in mind that everyone at this point is floating around the same number, effectively equal during peacetime. And so there's a number of fleets that are just kind of floating around here. I'd be interested to see in the Riemann fleet, they have New Fleet, which they've affectionately referred to as Monster Squad. So here we can see that in that fleet, they have a D4, so a KD4, the K just being the Riemann designation for these. You have a couple of KD3s, the D3s being a W era ship, so Y-Tech, higher technology, they can move 4 hexes. The D3s can only move 3 hexes. The K4s, K4 plus in this case, they are the destroyers, so 3-4. They have these KE2s, which are their frigates. And then you've got the KE1, which is a W-era frigate, which again only moves 3 hexes, and that's 1.5, 2. So it's interesting because these ships are a slight, I don't want to say they're cheap knockoffs of Klingon ships, but they're a little different, right? My equivalent in the Klingon fleet, my equivalent of these are very, very close, but slightly different. And you'll see why that is in a moment. So just take a note. Their E2 is a straight 3 ship. Mine is not. So yeah, we'll take a look at that as we go down here. All right. So they've got this big fleet up north, which is kind of supporting their exploration efforts and guarding that convoy, which is providing them extended supply. And we'll get to this in just a moment. There's this little wormhole that they sent something through. Let's take a gander as to where that went. What is that next to my head? That is a KE-1. That is a Riemann ship. Now, is it ironic that the Riemanns happen to pop up right next to the Romulans? I don't know. It would almost be more ironic if they popped up between the Klingons and the Romulans. That would be hilarious. But as it stands now, they have gone through their wormhole and they have popped out near the Romulans. Now, the question is, what are they going to do with that? Are they going to play nice and be nice with the Romulans? Are they going to do something else? We shall see. Yeah, we're going to take a look at how that evolves. This will be an interesting focal point because not only is this a wormhole from a two-way wormhole from the Riemanns to the Romulans, but it's also really close to other wormholes that the Romulans have. So if you think about it, think about Thor Ragnarok. In that movie, the Devil's Anus was this massive wormhole that brought everybody to that planet and became a nexus point for going to different places. This could be very similar. You can come out of that wormhole, jump out, and go through the other wormhole and go somewhere else. Wouldn't that be interesting? If you use that as like a, we'll call it like an interchange where you jump in and jump out at different places. It could provide a lot of interesting tactical and strategic uses as we go forward. So that would be really interesting. But let's scoot up back to the Riemann map and take a look at the ISC. Just before we jump into the ISC, now that we've had a chance for the chat to kind of start to populate, let's head over and take a look at the chat. So I see Jim is voting for the Sinister Seven. I see that. Okay, let's take a look here. All right. So I see Daniel, FWIW. Don't know what that means. West map is in the mail. Okay, got it. I'll go take a look for that in a momento. Peter Johnson joining us on the live stream. Hi, Peter. Welcome to the live stream. Thanks for joining us. I've got, so Paul says hi to Peter. We've got a couple, we've got Mejiman. I am just doing a terrible job of pronouncing that. Wait 63 minutes for the show to start. Wife wants me to do something. 1:30 after start. Okay. So Mejiman is going off to do something. He'll be back a little bit later, catching us on the replay. And then this is turn 49, year 90, spring. Okay. So that's what we're talking about here. Let's while I'm in this chat mode, let me ask you guys a question. We saw that Jim voted for a 7, but I didn't see any other C's. There we are. I didn't see any other C's for the Fertile Crescent or 7s for the Sinister 7. What do you think we should name this map at this point? The Fertile Crescent or the Sinister 7? You tell me in the comments right now. All right, so let's take a jump back to the map and take a look at what the ISC is up to. Hey, ISC, how are you? We've got the continuing excitement with their hateful Paravians in the north that just really don't like what the ISC are doing. You can see that there is a R&D team on its way to the ISC homeworld, which is really, it's going to start amping up the cooperation between these two and, of course, giving them some perks when it comes to research and development. As a recap, when you have an R&D team, you send it to the other person's capital, and they also send a research and development team to yours. The two of them working together provides you additional points of research to random techs within a certain sort of theme that you're looking at. So I can pull up maybe a little bit later an example of that, and we'll take a look. All right, so let's take a look at the ISC. All right, so it seems like things are continuing to putter along at a very vanilla pace for the ISC. We might say you're not rocking the boat. We've got the various fleets that they have here, which are trying to improve the attitude on this colony, continue to expand and explore. You can see that there is a tug here, which is most likely going to stand by to build a base of some type to extend supply going forward. You have the ISC with their, yep, so they got a couple frigates supporting their large exploration vessel. And we have, of course, a number of bases that have been built along the border with the Hydrans, which are continuing to support their exploration to the east. So really what you can see here is there is a, we'll call it a casual effort from the ISC to explore and sort of map out the backyard, you might say, the backyard. So the area behind them where no sort of new players are going to be coming from. Along the border, we've got some fairly decent amount of energy and effort in this area where there is sort of space to travel back and forth between the Hydrans and the ISC. Interestingly enough, because the fog of war hexes are still in effect here, there's been no impetus, shall we say, for the ISC to build any defenses or bases along there. So that's very interesting. So no bases built along there. They're just kind of doing whatever they can to support their continued exploration to the west. So really, again, ISC are playing it super vanilla, not choosing to stir the pot, cause any issues, really more like the strategic play. Let's take away their ships for a sec and just look at their base distribution, because this is something that came up in the early part of the game. The ISC were doing an aggressive job of building out bases. And you can see here that they've got this sort of boxy structure, which is like up, down, left, right, BA, BA, or AB, AB. But the, for all my Contra fans out there, the base distribution or the sort of the build schedule hasn't really gone any further. Paul is telling me to look at his fleets. Okay, let's pull up the ships and look at his fleets. All right, let's see here. ISC. Okay, named echelons. Okay, so these are the named echelons, which are the, and it's going to block the map here for a moment. These are basically what the IC is using to populate most of his fleets. So in the past, we have seen predominantly YCLs, so light cruisers in the Y era, populating most of these fleets. What are we seeing now? This is a noticeable change. So we can see obviously Destiny Fleet, which is this fleet up at the Riemann capital. It's got a YCL in the research and development team. What else do we have? A command cruiser in enforcement fleet with a YCL and a not one, but two different commando cruisers. Interesting. As we scroll down here, we can see, again, population of a lot of YCLs, and then a YCA with a YFF. Again, a YCA with 3 YCLs and a YDD. Where is that? That's Truth Fleet. Where is Truth Fleet? Let's move that. Whoops. Move that out of the way. And there's Truth Fleet up near the capital. So what we're seeing from the ISC, and I can see it in the comments here, Paul is saying that he's off to the Paravians. So Paul is choosing to, first of all, he's reinforcing these echelons or those little fleets that we've got, and he's creating sort of a more robust fleet of ships that he's going to use to go stomp his Paravian encounter, which is interesting. Let's take a look at the Paravians in Owl Fleet just to see kind of what they got versus Bird Fleet, Owl Fleet. Okay, so the Paravians have a YCA, 2 DDs, and 3 YFFs. On the homeworld, they also have a planetary ground base and a YBS. So nothing too crazy. Like it's a relatively hard target, but it's not obscene. And so it'll be interesting to see, because we can see that there's a YCL in this area, enforcement and truth fleet. Let's pull that up again. Brain, can you please find the ISC? Thank you. Goodness gracious. I would make a joke about getting old, but considering the audience, I'm the young one here. So let's see here. Enforcement and truth fleet. So we can see truth fleet is a YCA, 3 YCLs, and a YDD. And enforcement is, again, a command cruiser, a YCL, and 2 commando. So basically, he's got two cruisers, 2 light cruisers, and a destroyer, along with 2 commando ships going to try and take this Paravian planet. I think that's a great plan. First, because it's going to allow you to practice or at least for the IC, allow them to practice fighting a battle and seeing how that goes. The experience of going through that exchange and sort of seeing in real time how it plays out, really valuable for when you fight the players. And also, of course, I mean, there's a planet there, and it's going to get them some added EP. So that's good. I'm really excited about that. Yeah, Jim saying, quickly, let's fund the Paravian Defense League. Yeah, send them some money and let's see what happens. All right. So let's let's go down and check out. Speaking of Jim, the Hydrans.
Sorry, but I can only shop in the primary language associated with your Amazon account.
That's hilarious. I don't know if you just heard that, but my Amazon Echo just went off. Alexa, stop. That's hilarious. All right. I got to turn that off next time. That'll be funny. So let's take a look at the Hydrans here. Maybe can I zoom in? I'm going to zoom in one and move this over. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's take a look at what we are looking at with the Hydrans, which is this ridiculous stack. Just drink that in. Take that in. So before I even go into, and I'm not going to go into all the fleet boxes, I just want to say, Hydrans, you got to consolidate your fleets into like one fleet box or two or three maybe, but all of those, watch. I'm going to open up these fleet boxes. This is going to be ridiculous. So first, second, third, and what was it? Fourth? Oh, first, second, and fifth. First, second, third, and fifth. All right, let's try that. So first, second, third, and fifth. I know you can't see these. Hold on. So let's just point this out. You got a fleet for one ship. You got a fleet for one ship and a prime team. You got a fleet for one ship and a prime team. And you got a fleet for two vols. Okay, so for the ease of use for all of our viewers, I am not going to go through every fleet box because when there's only one ship in each fleet box, it is infuriating. However, the long story short here is that the Hydrans have stomped their Klingon bug. They've exterminated their irritant, the rock in their shoe, which was the Klingons. To recap, the Klingons had reached out and destroyed or attacked a bunch of their exploration ships as they were passing by. But boom! Never trust a Klingon. Hopefully that was slow enough. Somebody had said that they go a little bit too fast, those little coffee notifications. Hopefully that was slow enough for all of you. If not, let me know in the comments and I can slow that down even further. But never trust a Klingon, says the Hydrans, I'm sure. To which I say, I mean, you gotta wonder where this is coming from. All right, so we've got the Hydrans stomping out the Klingon faction here in this minor world right here. And why is that important? For the rest of the galaxy, this was a focal point for the Hydrans, and they were laser focused, magnifying glass on an ant, trying to stomp out this particular Klingon faction. They were distracted, one might say, in such a way that they weren't necessarily looking at what was happening around them. Now that's gone. So what's going to happen now? Well, they're going to continue their exploration. They're going to continue their exploration to the west, I'm going to assume, and potentially increase their effort to explore and map this wormhole. Reminder, this wormhole comes from the Tholian side. The Tholians on the other side of the map came through that wormhole and said hi. You'll notice the ship right here. Once my mouse plays nice here. Play nice. There we are. So you can see YPC. That's a Tholian ship right there. So whether they continued their exploration to the west, whether they use that to sort of send something through to the Tholians, we shall see. However, one way or another, the Hydrans are now free of impairment, impedance, anything that's going to get in their way, and they're moving west. Again, as the Pet Shop Boys say, go west. All right. So other than that, what else have we got? As I continue to point out to all the other players, there seems to be villainy. Scum and villainy are thriving in the Hydran Kingdom. We have like an insane population of of Orion pirates in the Tholian, or sorry, in the Hydran space, and they're everywhere. And so much so, they're making so much money, they built themselves a YDK. So I don't know what's going on between the Hydrans and the Orions, but I'm going to continue to push that point and see what happens. Of course, Jim, the Hydran player, is going to continue to talk about how we should squish the Klingons. I leave that up to you. One other thing I want to bring of note to the Hydran turn is the discovery of this lab ship. Now, we had asked this question earlier in a previous live stream about what lab ships do. Long story short from the GM was you capture it, you take it back to your homeworld, and it gives you this sort of random bump in EP to a tech. What tech? How much? We shall see. I wait to hear the report from Jim as to what technology and how much he got from it when it comes to that lab ship. We'll see. We shall see. All right, exciting stuff. Other little things to note when it comes to the Hydran turn. I'm just going to zoom out real quick so we can see the bigger map here. We can see how sort of where they are in relation to the neutral zones that they've negotiated. The neutral zone along the top here with the ISC has sort of grown as they've been exploring. I'm assuming some negotiation between the ISC and the Hydrans to push this to the west. So you can see that's happening here. No harm, no foul, and it's not really impacting anything, but you can see that the Hydrans' current rate of expansion is not outpacing that border. You can also see that happening down here on the south in that the border has remained static up to November 33, and they're continuing to kind of push west and southwest here. Obviously, like I said, they would have been distracted by the rock in their shoe. That rock is now flattened, and they'll be proceeding as such. So how quickly they expand? We shall see. Yeah, Jim's apparently saying that he's got Juggernaut tech, so he's now in GW, and he's going to really take us all out. So we'll see how that goes. All right, let's go down to the Carnavans. Okay, so actually, before I get into the Carnavans, let's take a quick look at the chat. I know I've been commenting about how Jim's talking about stomping me and all this business. So, Jim, it seems... Sorry, Bill says to Jim, it seems you are more the agitator there, buddy. 6 Orion bases there in Hydran space with the Orions or Orion space with some Hydrans. Yeah, the question is whether it's Orions in Hydran space or is it Hydrans in Orion space? Which one do you think? It'd be interesting to see. All right. So Jim makes reference to the second heresy, meaning that the Klingons, and the second heresy, go get them, charge. Jim, making comments about going southwest to get to me and all that stuff. That's so hilarious. So we claim protection over the Paravians to our southwest. Okay, yeah. So we'll talk about that in a moment, but yeah, you can claim all you like. We'll see how that goes. Good times, good times. All right, let's head over to the Carnavan. So despite the fact that they like to set up rides and we can jump on their giant pinwheels and merry-go-rounds, the Carnies are green and yellow here, and they are, in all seriousness, the Carnavans in this game, for those of you who are not familiar with Carnavans, are basically giant werewolves. Just like the Kzinti and the Lyrans are giant bipedal cats, the Carnavans are giant bipedal wolf type species, kind of like werewolves, and of course here they're green and yellow. In the context of the role playing, and we can have a more sort of in-depth discussion with the player who plays the Carnavans. The Carnavans are a faction, as played out in this game, that is sort of predator prey driven, in the sense that they are predators. They are going forth and sort of what was the name? I'm about to sneeze here. What was the name of the faction, the species in Voyager? I think they started with an H, that went around the galaxy and were hunting everything. I gotta sneeze in a second. Oh my goodness. I can't remember the name, but whatever the name of that faction is, that is the faction. That's kind of like what I'm thinking of when it comes to this. I'm going to take a quick sip. All right. So but either way, the faction of the Carnavans are played out in a sort of that's sort of like a little bit of their mentality and their motivation. We'll see how that goes going forward. Now, when it comes to what they're doing and where they're going, let's take away their ships for a second. We can see the base distribution. So you can see that they've got, of course, they've got this YDK down here and one up top. So they've got a little bit of a base structure, we'll say, or base infrastructure built around their homeworld. They've extended it. You can see this is an interesting sort of like hodgepodge of connectivity. You've got 1, 2, 3 to this colony. The colony then provides supply to 1, 2, 1, 2, and of course to this planet here, which was a former Paravian planet. You've also got an extension down here, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So they've got this base infrastructure here. And of course, they've got New Romulus, which was a previous Romulan planet. Hydran, that's right. Thank you, Paul. Hydran was the name of those that faction in Voyager. So that's what I think of when I think of the Carnavans in this context. I think of very sort of Hydran kind of motivations there. So you can see these guys have a 3 hex, assuming 3 hex supply. They could have 4, you never know. But nonetheless, they'll have supply out to this range here. And they've obviously explored into this hex. Let's bring back the ships real quick. We can see there's a convoy here potentially providing extended supply to have found the, as I made the joke in the last live stream, the Flaming Dragon faction. With my Tropic Thunder reference. So Red Dragon is down here. I mean, they are the Batman faction, but we're just going to call this one in the corner of the Paravian party here. We're going to call that Flaming Dragon. So Flaming Dragon is you know, just doing their thing. It's a developing planet, which is a 2 EP planet. And let's take a quick look at the Borak Red Dragon fleet. Whoops, Red Dragon. And you can see that it's nothing really to write home about. It's 2 frigates, which is nothing too scary. So not much is going to be required from the Carnavan should they want to stomp it. We'll see how that goes. If past is prologue, we'll see them get stomped in short order. As well, what we can see is that the Paravians, or sorry, the Carnavans had to deal with the Juggernaut faction, which was down here where Home Fleet is. They had popped out of a wormhole in around the X41 space, and there had been a base down here that the Juggernauts moved to, and in classic 80s hair rock fashion, partied like it was 1999 and blew up the base on their way out. So the Carnavan sent down a fleet to attack, and they had a number of cripples, which included, as we can see here, a drone bombardment ship. And I don't know, let's see, is there anything else in the Carnavan fleet? Carnavan home fleet. My goodness. So look at this fleet. This is ridiculous. So this is the fleet that he has or had doing damage there. My God. So 2 command cruisers, 5 cruisers, 2 destroyers, 3 bombardment ships. So these are interesting. These drone bombardment ships are a 3-4 ship. I'm be interested to know how much they cost to build, because that's a pretty good ship. They're like a destroyer hull. But they have a better attack factor than the normal DD. And then, of course, he's got, what is this, 6 different frigates. And then on top of that, he's got a total of 5 prime teams. I'm assuming all on those cruisers. So this is just a ridiculous fleet. Like it's quite a potent little combination of stuff, and we'll see how that goes. So, yes, that's quite a... we'll see how that goes. That's quite a fleet of ships, and of course all this stuff here. You can notice that there is a number of convoys that are strategically placed to be able to build bases in sort of the right places based on that 2 hex distribution that we talked about before. 2 hex being the extended reaction range. So if you don't know, if reaction and reaction movement is something that's new to you, please go check out our reaction movement video in the playlist, and you'll be able to check out exactly how reaction movement works in this game and how you can use it to full effect. So that's why we build bases at a 2 hex distance to be able to take advantage of, yeah, no beret. Hold on. You want a beret? Stand by. All right. You want a beret? Oh, hold on. Let's get this. Skyla Moon. No beret today, Commander? All right, well, let's get this beret on. Ugh. It's the problem when you have stubble. It sticks. All right, there we are. There we go. All right, you tell me. What do you think? My beret is nicely formed, and away we go. Okay, as we continue, beret in place. So we've got these convoys in place that are going to be building these bases at a 2-hex interval, and I expect they will sort of move their way down. I expect there will likely be a base. So there's a base there right now, probably a base in Q39 when there's an opportunity, and then maybe up here in Oscar 38. We'll see how it goes. Some people might say it's peanut butter jelly time. I say it's beret time, baby. Or others might say Miller time. It's beret time. All right, so that's the Carnavan. Also, another thing to think about with the Carnavan is that they've captured this WCA that came through the wormhole from the Lyrans. So the Lyrans sent this ship through this wormhole, the Kilo wormhole, and the Carnavans captured it. And French floppy beret. No, we don't wear berets like that. It's terrible. I always get all worked up when I watch movies and I see like crazy floppy berets. It just drives me insane. You need a nice tight beret that's like nicely formed to your head. That's how we measure the effect of a good beret. All right. Yes, Lyran ship, the WCA went through the wormhole and they captured it, and so it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. Based on the narrative in the story, interestingly enough, if you're interested in finding more about the backstory, the narrative, the story that's being told in this game, then you can head over to the link down below, down below there. You can head over there, and in one of the tiers, you can join us not only for the monthly coffee support, but you can also join us on our Discord channel. And in the Discord channel, we have a narrative sub-channel that shows a lot of this storyline development. And in that storyline, for example, we've talked about how the Lyrans and the Carnavans have a history. The Lyrans used to sort of occupy and govern the Carnavans, and then at some point were overthrown and they disappeared. And how that plays out in this game is that they disappeared through this wormhole and they're on the other side of the galaxy. So how is this going to evolve going forward? What's the relationship going to be like? We shall see. As it is currently now, the Lyrans are sort of an aggressive player species, and the Carnavans are not necessarily overly aggressive, but I mean, they're certainly not going to roll over for anybody. So we'll see how this goes, and moves going forward. The challenge being it is a wormhole, and so how are the Lyrans going to be able to research, take advantage of, and then leverage that wormhole technology and tactical advantage that they'll have. So we'll see how that goes. All right, let's move on from the Carnavan and down to the Klingons. I'm going to zoom out one, and I'm going to switch my head to the other side. Incidentally, for those of you who are watching us live right now, while we watch live, I look at the YouTube Studios, what do you want to call it? I look at the YouTube Studio data that comes in around our live stream. And I can see here that there's these kind of peaks and valleys when it comes to the viewers. And I don't know if that's the intermittent data coming from YouTube, or if you as a viewer are experiencing sort of cutouts or issues with regards to the stream. If you are experiencing any challenges, any issues when it comes to the stream, then please let me know in the chat, in the comments. If you're watching this on the replay, let me know how you're experiencing this stream. If there's an issue, if there's a problem, if there's something going on, I really want to hear about it so that I can make this experience in the stream better for you. Please let me know. All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty. The Klingon faction. I'm going to zoom out one more hex here, and I want you to take a look at this. Now, my head's a little bit in the way. Let me see if I can move this up a little bit. Okay, so my head's kind of in the way, but I want you to just take a quick look at the footprint of the Romulan Empire and the footprint of the Klingon Empire. Now, I know my head's a little bit in the way, but you can you can pretty much tell that the Romulans, as far as their ability to explore and expand, they've done a really good job of exploring. They occupy more square footage, so to speak, than the Klingons do. Now, it's purely by luck and by chance that the Klingons have the economy that they have. It is purely by luck and by chance that they are, that I am as economically potent as I am based on the footprint that I occupy. Look at the Hydrans, for example. The Hydrans, if we scroll up here, and of course my head is going to continue to be in the way. Let's swap there we go. Now, the Hydrans also have a large sort of footprint. Whoops. Let's undo that. Didn't mean to move that. They also have a relatively large footprint. Or at least they did. If you check out this footprint, and granted, I mean, we'd have to count all the hexes, and that's a little problematic. But if we look at the number of hexes explored, and then we go over here to the Romulans, I would argue, are the biggest by square footage, or at least how much space they occupy. And as a result, I think that they are sort of from a bad luck perspective, they haven't gotten the best rules on exploration of resources, because when we look at the EP distribution, again, the Hydrans are at 34. The Romulans are at 31.5, and the Klingons 36.5. So what's going on there? We'll see. Let's take a look here at the Klingons real quick, and I'll just give you a quick recap on what's going on my end. As you can see here, we'll start on the Carnavan border. A couple little things have happened. So from the previous live stream, and I'll zoom in here and make it a little bit easier to see. So from the last live stream, we had encountered the Carnavans. Also, we have this faction here, which is the Borak faction. And the Borak have a minor planet, which is a 3EP planet. And they have a YDK, a planetary ground base, and they have this fleet. Now, this fleet is nothing to sneeze at. It's not insignificant. The Borak fleet for Takesis being that 5-headed, multicolored headed dragon, they have a DN, a YDN. So that's the most powerful Y-era ship really in the game, at least for any particular faction. And a 6-8 is a pretty good YDN. The YCA, which is a 4-6, which is comparable to everybody else's, or at least mine. They have a DD, which is Y-era DD, which is a 1.5-4, which isn't a very good DD, but nonetheless, it's a destroyer. And then they have 2 of these frigates, which are 1-3s. So their destroyers and frigates aren't very good, but their CA and DN are. And they have, of course, one of each, and the YDK. So they've got a very potent and effective defense force there. It's going to hold people off for a while. And chances are, if they start going to war with anybody, or like people start stirring the pot, things are going to get bad fast. In addition to those guys who are right here on the border, let me just take away the ships real quick so you can see what's what. We've got a base right along here, and it might be a little confusing to see, but the Carnavans and the Klingons negotiated a neutral zone. That neutral zone extends, as you can see here, into the whiskey column, and just a little bit of it went 2 hexes down to sort of telegraph a vertical plane for the boundary potentially going forward. And as you can see here, this up and down really reflects a combination of the exploration that's been done up to this point. So the Carnavan have explored this area, so we'll run this neutral zone here. And then it's just doing a little kick up or going around the base that was previously existing by the Klingons prior to encountering each other, and then continues up in this northwesterly fashion. Now, what's interesting about this is that, of course, we've got 2 minor factions, the Borak here, the Batman faction, because their ships look like bats, and it's yellow and black, and then a Paravian faction here. Now, they're both on this side of the neutral zone, but you'll see that each one of these minor factions have a neutral zone that extends around their planet. And that is because each of these minor factions exercise their own neutral zone around their territory. And that's kind of like a default that happens every time you discover a minor faction. This neutral zone pops in around it. So that's why it looks kind of that way. And it might be a little confusing, but that's kind of what we got. What's interesting to note is that the neutral zone negotiated between the Carnavans and the Klingons extends up to the top of this Paravian one. So they're both those planets are on sort of the Klingon side of that neutral zone. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. Also interesting to note, if ships cross the neutral zone, you go to war. Something to think about. Because you're breaching, breaking, violating previous agreements. And in the context of how we play this game, you'll go to war. What's interesting about that also is that when you go to war, you're going to a war economy. That's what I mean to say when we say that. We're going to a war status on our economy, and that has implications going forward. So things to think about. Right, let's bring back the ships real quick. So we got the Takhisis fleet, and so we've got this T4, which is a tug, which had built this YBS, and it's currently just kind of sitting there waiting for the delegation to arrive, which we had extended an invitation to the Carnavan for their diplomat to come to this this YBS. So in previous negotiations, we had extended an invitation for them to send us a diplomat or send us your delegation, and that looks to be what's happening here. So if they send we've invited them to this particular base station. If they come to that base station, all good. You can also see that there's a D3E, which is the exploration vessel with an escort and a tug, just waiting for that to be explored, as this hex is already explored, and then we can build a hex or build another base, kind of in the 2 hex mantra. I didn't want to go into the Borak neutral zone and build there, because depending on the interaction with the minor faction, that could be a point of contention, shall we say. And then, of course, we've got up here, we've got the Paravian faction that's shown up, and they have Kite Fleet. So let's just take a quick look at Kite Fleet. And Kite Fleet is, as you can see, it's a very robust 2 frigates. So 2 frigates plus this YBS, not exactly the biggest, baddest fleet that you can see. Of course, the Klingon fleet isn't exactly overly threatening either. It's Klingon home fleet, which is, nothing to get too excited about. It's a D3 W era command cruiser, an E1, and a crippled E1. So I got to go repair that crippled E1. Now, we had some crippled E2s from previous combat that head over to this area, and you can see there's one here, and one here. They were distributed that way so that these bases could repair them and they can go and do their thing. We also have a series of F4s here, which are, I think, at this era, the F4 is probably the best ship for the Klingons. It's a really good little punch of a ship. So they've got those ships there, doing great. And then of course, we got the bases and continue to explore along that border. So just addressing the Carnavan border before we kind of move into the other stuff. Let's move in to the other stuff. All right, let's go to the border with the Romulans, and let's explain what happened here, because this was kind of an interesting little doohickey. So you can see here that there is a planet. This planet used to be the Kzinti, and the Kzinti were taken by the Klingons 2 turns ago. Now, in a previous turn, the Romulans had been in where I believe they were in Bravo. Yeah, they were in Bravo 45. So they were here, and they were going to send a delegation to the Klingons to negotiate peace. They also had a ship in this hex right here, Delta 45, and it was a tug. And they had a ship in Delta 45. And so what they saw on their map was that this was still a Kzinti planet. The reason why that is because, again, with regards to reaction range, the sensor range of your ship indicates and tells you what you can see at what range. They could only see 1 hex away from this ship in Delta 45. They couldn't see and didn't know that the Kzinti ship or the Kzinti planet was owned by the Klingons, because they, A, don't have supply to it, and if they don't have supply to it, then they can't see back and forth, and they didn't have any ships within 1 hex proximity to it to be able to see that it had changed hands. They sent this delegation of a diplomat, a WKB, a Kingbird, and a WB, Warbird. Basically, the King is a command cruiser, and the W is their normal cruiser, so a 4.6 and a 4.5 respectively, and then they had a frigate with the diplomat. They had sent, and they had been invited to arrive here at the planet. Now, why did I attack them? Well, let me talk about the sequence of events. The ships had been invited and arrived at the planet. And prior to arriving to the planet, they entered into Echo 45. When they entered into Echo 45, they were asked, because we had previously discussed, they were asked to exchange navigational data. I shared mine with them, they shared theirs with me. Now, from an out-of-character conversation, this was purely for the ease of the GM to be able to integrate all the maps, create the crescent that we have now, or the Sinister Seven. But it was also from the perspective of the Klingon faction. This was all about intelligence. We needed to understand who we're dealing with, what's going on, and was this faction a threat? So we got the exchange of information, and then we allowed them to proceed to the planet Nippon. So they arrived at Nippon, and once they arrived there, we had open maps back and forth. Then, because of the initiative, the Romulans went first, and the Klingons went second. The Klingons went, and on my turn, we declared war, because there's a couple things going on. The player who's playing the Romulans, we don't have great communication back and forth. They're not very responsive. Now that's, real life gets in the way and interrupts your ability to play a game. And we all understand this is just playing a game. But from the role-playing aspect, the lack of communication, the lack of transparency seems like they're trying to hide something. They're trying to delay something. There is the risk of something bad happening. And when those maps opened, in Delta 45, they were building a base. They were building a base within 2 hexes of the planet we just took. And that was unacceptable. So in that turn, we attacked, destroyed the base under construction and the tug that was building it. We attacked the ships that were on that hex where the planet is and drove them back, and essentially started a war. Because from the Klingon perspective, there's a couple things that are going on. One, there is a lack of open communication and transparency from the Romulan side. Now, whether you want to say that's classic Romulans or not, whatever that is, but it seems as though there is some kind of something else is going on. There is some potential threat that's happening there. And with the distance to this planet, we need more breathing room. We don't feel that it is acceptable to build a base that close to that planet and have that planet right on the border. So this is going to be the beginnings of, shall we say, gunboat diplomacy, and we'll negotiate something sort of at the pointy end of a disruptor, and we'll see how that goes. Now, from the role-playing perspective, this was about controlling information and understanding what you're dealing with. There was a lack of transparency, breakdown of trust. And then because of that, and the fact that there was an aggressive action, like a base being built in close proximity to the planet we had just taken, the Klingon faction reacted. So we'll see how that goes going forward. However, let's just take a quick look at what's going on here. So on this planet, we have Joint Task Force Alpha and Gamma. So let's pull up those Alpha and Gamma. All right. So let's put this over my head. Let's put it up in the gray here. It'll be easier to see. And running. There we go. Okay. So what do we got? We have a fleet of 7 F4s and a D3 in Joint Task Force Alpha. In Joint Task Force Gamma, we have a command cruiser, D4. We have 4 D4s and an F4. So that's a total, just in the fleets, that's a total of 5 Y cruisers plus a D3, which is kind of like something in between an F4 and a D4 in the sense of its combat effectiveness. It's got the same attack factors as the F4, but defense factors that are a little bit better. So we got 5 cruisers, we've got 8 destroyers, and then this sort of W-era cruiser as well. And then on top of that, on that hex, we've also got an E2 and an F4. So these are 2 ships that are supporting that. So a couple little things here. One, there was a resource here that was Romulan, and we had sent a ship there to take it. Now, in previous games, you needed to leave a ship in position to be able to sort of exert control over a resource. If it just zipped in and zipped out, it would sort of liberate it, but wouldn't take control of it. So that's something that will work with our GM, whether that's the standard now going forward, that you can just kind of zip in, zip out, and cause that flipping. If that's the case, that'll be very interesting. That'll cause all sorts of challenging situations, I'm sure. And then, but if you have to leave a unit there to convert it, we'll see how that goes. Keep in mind, this is the first player-on-player action. Not the way we wanted to word that. This is the first player-on-player conflict that we've seen, really, sort of like full-fledged war in the game. So we're kind of we're doing this in real time. So we'll see how this goes. But that gives you a sense of what's going on that front. Also, just to be able to take the ships away for a sec, you can see that there's no base on the planet, so no infrastructure there. But we do have YDKs in the back end to provide repair and support for these ships. Also, important to note, look, we've got a YDK over here from the Romulan side. So that's a really hard target. I don't know how we're going to deal with that. That's going to be a real pain in the butt. But we'll see how that goes. All right, so let's bring back the ships. And that's pretty much it from the Klingon side. Let's go over to the Romulans, slide over, and we can see a couple things. One, they are continuing their exploration in the north and sort of northwest. You can see that they've not only communicated, but changed or exchanged maps with the Gorn, opening up the map between them, hence the crescent now. We've got the discovery of this Borak faction. The Borak seem to be extremely popular around the world or around the galaxy. They are just, peppering the place with their seed. So instead of Flaming Dragon and the five-headed Phenom, we've now got the Color of Money, which is the Green Dragon. I don't know where I'm coming up with these. The Color of Money. And they are a developing planet, which again is a 2 EP planet, and they have a YBS, a planetary ground base, and the Color of Money, as Christopher Walken would say, and that's a terrible impression. He's got a YCA and 2 YFFs. So again, nothing too crazy when it comes to the military side from the Borak, but the Color of Money here is really an interesting target for the Romulans. Due to the fact that they are a relatively soft target. But you can see the Gorn and the Romulans do not have an agreed upon neutral zone. Interesting. But they have exchanged maps and they are continuing to explore the region between them. So I'd be interested to see how the relationship between these two evolves and goes forward. Very interesting. And of course, as we mentioned, there is the Riemann faction that has popped up with a wormhole on the bottom, like the southwest of the Romulan map. Now, I don't know what the tech level is of the Riemanns with this technology for the versus the Romulans. Like, do they have the technology to be able to transit it without crippling? Obviously, that wouldn't be the case because they've crippled this ship on the way through. But there's a lot of like interesting things here when they can start using the strategic and tactical use of wormholes and how that goes forward. Again, as I mentioned, there's this other wormhole here, and so if you were to go through one and then go through the other, it could become a nexus point of distribution. Specifically, if that wormhole, the S Sierra wormhole, goes somewhere special, that could be very, very interesting. But I digress. That is the Romulans. Let's just take a quick look at their. Now, I'm not going to go through their fleets. We've already gone through in previous live streams the fleets that are here on the border. These are all sort of one cruiser, one frigate, all W era exploration fleets. That's what this all is. And that's essentially what's going on with all their exploration fleets. They're all W era for the most part, W era ships. And that explains when we talk about their fleet cap, they have 37 ship equivalents, but they've got this, very low combat effectiveness, like attack and defense factor. But if we go back to their homeworld, and what do they got? They got joint task force and home fleet. So let's, what was it? Is it Oh, it's not Delta. Is it Delta? Delta. Okay, so we got Delta, which is a W-era warbird and a W-era frigate. Nothing too crazy. And they've got Home Fleet, Romulan Home Fleet. I think this is probably where things are going to get exciting. Yes. Romulan Home Fleet, a W-era Vulture, a Y-era cruiser, two Y-era warbirds, which are cruisers. So command cruiser, two Y-era cruisers, two frigates, and this commando cruiser. Now, what's interesting here is that you've got at least two W-era ships. W-era ships can only travel 3 hexes. The rest of them can travel 4 hexes. So, assuming you have a 2x strategic movement technology, which is what most of us have at this point, those W-era ships can only move 1, 2, 3, or actually, I guess we don't have, sorry, we have 1.5. So at 1.5, a 4 hex ship, movement ship, can travel strategically 6 hexes. So the Y-era ships could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They can't reach this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, they can. So they can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They can strategically move to this YDK. The W-era ships can't. They can only move. They would be equivalent of 4.5. So they essentially can only move 4 hexes. 1, 2, 3, 4 strategically. They could move 3 hexes operationally. Which is, if you want to know the difference between operational movement and strategic movement, I can make a video on that specifically. But it's effectively, operational movement happens prior to combat. Strategic movement happens at the very end of the turn. And strategic movement ships don't really get involved in a combat during the phasing player's turn. So, so that's basically where that's at. It'll be interesting to see what the Romulans can pump out as far as ships, like what can they build and what can they send out. That will be interesting to see. So we'll see how that goes and how that maps going forward. Lastly, let's go check out the Gorn on this map. All right. So I like the Gorn for so many reasons. One, I feel like they're a sleeping giant. I feel like they're about to unload and cause serious pain. Let's look at Gorn Home Fleet. Gorn Home Fleet. Whoa, hello. So the Gorn Home Fleet has 6 of these destroyers, 2 frigates, 2 light cruisers, and this YDN. Not a terrible fleet by any means. Pretty decent. They've also got, as we've discussed before, they've got their W-era ships, which are conducting the exploration, and their economy is 30.5. So 30.5 versus the 31.5 of the Romulans, very similar. So very interesting to see. And their growth, like their footprint is comparable to maybe about 2/3 or 3/4 of what the Romulans have, and their economy is very similar. So that just goes to the sort of the luck of the draw and the rolls that you get. So that's very interesting to see that. What else? I'm just going to take a quick look at the, hey, Tony, look at the Gorn Home Fleet. It's boss. Yeah. So Gorn Home Fleet, like we just said. We got 4th Expeditionary Fleet. I'm going to take a quick look at 3rd Fleet here, which is on the border with the Romulans. Interesting. So this is basically an exploration fleet, which is the survey cruiser or survey ship plus the frigate. And so, you know, it's not doing anything too dastardly. It's not doing anything too bad. They are building this base right on the wormhole here, the Gorn that is. And so it'll be interesting to see this interaction and this interchange between the Gorn and the Romulans and how that evolves going forward. If I was a betting man, I would say the Gorn aren't going to start anything anytime soon, because why? If the Romulans and the Klingons have a prolonged or protracted conflict, that'll drain resources for the Romulans, and the Gorn can just kind of stack up, so to speak, you know, build up their military while they're waiting. And then once they're ready to pull the trigger, assuming they want to fight, then they just pull the trigger and away you go. So it'll be very interesting to see how that evolves. So we've got the Gorn with their footprint. As you see, they're continuing their exploration. Let's take away the ships real quick. You can see based on supply, they've got really good reach right now. If we put the supply menu up for the Gorn and we set the supply to 3, so you can see here that they've got great reach right now when it comes to the bases they either have under construction or have already built. So they're really just leveraging what they've got, pushing up to the north and of course to the south to be able to really maximize their reach. So they're just going to have to continue to build out the strategic base building initiative, which they're doing. And it'll just be very interesting to see how this all maps going forward. But looking really good. All right, let's head over to the chat real quick. All right, let's take a look. Boom, boom, boom. Oh my goodness. All right. Okay, we're going a little bit further back here so I can catch up. Bad things happen to bad people, Jim says with a big smiley face. Yeah, I know. It'll be interesting to see what happens to the Hydrans as things go forward. Bill, thou protest too much, silly Squibbert. Daniel, executing the Klingon skirmish plan was a fun exercise. Lots of maneuver, supply shenanigans, and pew-pew. Yeah, and again, this was the first interaction. This is the first hot war between players. And as a result, they were sort of like, because as from a GM perspective, Daniel hasn't managed this at this level in this interaction yet. So it's just a matter of going through the motions and making sure that we have that process well thought out. You might say that I'm taking the initiative of having the first fight in the game in order to be able to work out these issues so that once we have sort of a more protracted, larger scale conflict with other players or multiple players, that all that stuff's worked out in advance so that there's no confusion, no resentment, no kind of issues around there. We want to make sure that we've worked out the standard, set the standard, and map that going forward so that there's no problems and no issues. So with that said, that's where it goes. Jim says, kill the second heresy, call a jihad, get help from the fluffy space dragons. See, there's only one player in this game which keeps referring to religious terminology like that. And I don't know that everybody else is really on board with that. Let me just take a quick sip. Of course, it's all with character for Jim, being the theocracy that he is. Bill, oh, really? You volunteering me for a war again? I love the interaction between these two. It's so good. Jim, you said, oh, wait, I'm supposed to keep that secret. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. Good question about that resource. I think it makes more sense that you have to stay to capture it. I totally agree, Daniel. So maybe, I mean, just for the purposes of this turn, leave it as is. Or if you want, we can just move the frigate back onto that hex and leave it there if that makes more sense. You let me know and we can just republish a new map to everybody. And just, it's not going to make a big difference, but it might be useful for the Romulan player to see that frigate is still there, if that makes sense. We'll study the turn order to verify. Jim, pretty certain you have to end on a resource to flip it. Yep, totally agree. In the sense that you got to be on that resource. You got to stay there to flip it. You can, as was said before, you can sort of liberate it in the sense of like, you hit it with a whole bunch of firepower and blow it up, but you have to like, you know, send your engineers over or send your security forces over or whatever. You have to occupy it to be able to take it. And that takes a little bit longer than just boom, boom, bang them up and shut it down. Bill says, a nexus of shenanigans. Hey, Tony, look at the Gorn home fleet. Yes, we did, which is looking very nice. I'd like to see that grow more and more and more and then deploy it wherever you'd like to deploy it. Bill just moved R&D and Prime Team to that base in N41, sent the WDD through the wormhole. Oh, really? Let me zoom out and take a look at the map. I did not see where that Gorn ship showed up. So you say you sent, hold on. There we go. You say you sent a ship through a wormhole. I am not seeing on my map a wormhole or a ship popping through another end of a wormhole. Unless you're doing that next turn. We'll see. November 41. Yeah, I don't see anything through the wormhole. So perhaps that did or didn't happen, or maybe it's happening next turn. We shall see. And yes, Jim is playing religious fanatics because, you know, if you're gonna go full, again, going to my Tropic Thunder references, if you're gonna go full, that word, that's where you get the win. That's how you get the Oscar. Actually, I think it's the opposite way around. You don't go full that word in order to get the Oscar. And they make reference to that. All right. Turn 49, he's going to do it. Okay, got it. All right, so in turn 49, we're going to see that frigate go through that wormhole, and then boom, 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 we're going to see where the Gorn end up. Very interesting. All right, so while I'm going to be talking to you now, I'm just going to open up my email and get that from that map from our GM, because I haven't downloaded it until just now. So I'm just going to download it and open it as we are talking. And then we can take a look at where the Tholians, the Federation, and the Lyrans are. What's particularly interesting about their interaction is, of course, the Tholians are a big, bad, I emphasize bad, faction in the game, and they're not really causing any conflicts or, starting any wars. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. All right, so I've got that faction up on the map. Let's switch over now. All right, so this is what we see here. A couple of interesting things. Oh, wow. Okay, first of all, let's do around the clock. We'll check out EP and then fleet cap. All right, so as we move into, there we go, right over my head, we can see the Federation is at a 29 EP. We have the Tholians at 36 and the Lyrans at 30.5. So 29, 30.5, and 36. Very interesting. All right, let's look at the Tholians first because we got them right up here on the map. Oh, let's also look at fleet cap real quickly. So this is very interesting because, of course, the Tholians have 36 ship equivalents but have an abysmal attack and defense factor, relatively speaking. The Federation have 19 ship equivalents and have an attack and defense factor which is more comparable to what the Romulans have, and the Romulans have essentially twice as many ships. And the Lyrans have 35 ship equivalents with a 75-156. It's very interesting, this side of the map, or this trio, their militaries are not even on the same level, I would say, as the Sinister Seven or the Fertile Crescent, which is interesting to see, right? Because they're isolated from the rest of everybody. They're not really facing that conflict. It'll be very interesting to see, and I would laugh, or I would be very interested to quote historical references when a highly advanced militant culture encounters a non-equipped militant culture. It'll be very interesting to see. So let's just see how that goes. Yes, let's go into the Tholians and see what they got. All right, so right off the top, we've got the Federation. So the Federation had gone through this wormhole down here, and they're making their way slowly back. The Tholians have discovered now this is a medium planet. So colony, developing, minor, medium, major. The medium planet has a 4 economic output versus the 5 of a major or the 3 of a minor. And as you can see here, it's indicated by the small circle on the bottom and the big circle on the top. You can see that this particular faction has a YDK. And what was the name of that fleet? Home fleet. So the Kzinti home fleet. Boom. Oh, wow. Okay, let's just show you that. Okay, so this is not a small fleet. They have 6 frigates. They have 2 light cruisers. They have 2 of these strike cruisers. The YCS is a strike cruiser, Y era, which are 3 6s, and a YCC. This is not a small faction. And what's particularly interesting is because they are that, offensively powerful or competent or potent, I don't see the Tholians. Now, granted, the Tholians haven't tried to conquer anybody, but I don't see the Tholians being able to take them out. Mind you, they probably won't. The interesting to note, the Kzinti are or unhappy, so they're starting off in a sort of a negative mindset. It'll be interesting to see if they continue that negativity going forward. Let's take away the ships real quick so we can see the supply. You can see 1, 2, 3. There's 3 hexes between the latest Tholian base and the Kzinti faction. So it'll be interesting to see how that grows as far as the supply connection there. Also interesting to note that we know the Gorn are right here, and the Gorn are within spitting distance of that too. I'm sure if we pull up the Gorn map real quick, just for reference, the top of the Gorn map is around J34, And this is J34 right there. So J34 is 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes away from that Kzinti planet. It'll be interesting to see when they interact and encounter each other, because I believe that that would be a great staging point to be able to use the Kzinti against the Tholians should that need arise. Let's bring the ships back, and we can see, man, they've got a lot of stuff here. Okay, so let's start with the bottom and go counterclockwise. So as we go on the eastern side of the map here, you can see there's a real deficit of ships in the sense they're not doing a lot of exploration to the east. Interesting to note. So you can see here that you've got the YFEL, you've got this, looks like this 3YPC faction just either took or devastated this colony, and of course the colony is unhappy. This convoy is in place to be able to build another base to be able to extend supply. It would seem as though this colony is providing supply to this YFEL, and so once they build the base here, they can extend this exploration going that way. As we go to the north, along the border with the Federation, you can see the Federation border is quite robust now. I don't know that it was this long before, but obviously it's up to Victor 20 now. You can see that the YFEL continues to do its exploration. If they do have 3 hexes of supply, they're pretty much at the edge of it. I expect that this guy will close the distance between this colony and this fog of war to be able to sort of open that up and see how that goes going forward. You can see that the Gorn continue to be, well, they are now indifferent, so middle of the road when it comes to the Tholians. But the Tholians haven't mounted any kind of offensive attack. But what we did see is that the 101st Battle Squadron has destroyed and taken out the hostile Hydran faction that was here, which is why the Tholian economy has gone up by 1 EP. So this planet's devastated, and they will eventually recover. But the Tholians are not completely, shall we say, they're not pacifists. Everything that we've seen up to this point, they've been doing the diplomatic route to try and get along with all their neighbors. Obviously, they didn't do that here. They stomped them hard. And from the Hydran perspective, as Jim is screaming into his microphone now, no! Yes, the heresy took out your brothers and sisters. It is time for you to mount a crusade of sorts to take out your primary opponent in this game. Go forth, eliminate, wash the sands, or sorry, I would say soak the sand with the blood of your enemies, but in this case, because they're rock people, I would say scatter the dust of your enemies across the ocean of methane that you live in. So we'll see how that goes. As we can see, as we continue the counterclockwise, you can see the small exploration ships are continuing their quest to close up the backyard or explore the backyard, with their 3rd exploration freighter here in the sort of the bottom corner continuing to find new resources. And then as we go down, you've got another YFEL continuing to push to the south. Particular note for the Gorn, because we can see these maps like this, depending on how you want to role play, but when you encounter these folks, it'll be interesting to see what the dynamic is between the Tholians and the Gorn, because when you guys get into M and then GW era, it'll be a very interesting dynamic between you. In a previous campaign, we ended the campaign with what we referred to as the 3 Powers War between the Paravians, which I was playing, the Tholians, the ISC and the Gorn. And we watched the Gorn struggling through MTech to try and get their best ships to be able to fight this battle. Once the Gorn hit late M, early GW, it gets sick. Now, that being said, it also does the same for the Tholians, but the Gorn are incredibly robust and powerful offensively. The Tholians are incredibly robust and powerful defensively. Those two going at each other in a late stage war will be very interesting to see. Interestingly, Jim says the Tholians breathe methane and ammonia atmospheres. I did not know that. I didn't realize that the Tholians were methane breathers as well. Well, obviously you're competing for the same planet, so all the more reason to, have them stop taking what's yours. Jim, let's go. Get in there. Stir that pot. Get her done, as you might say. All right, let's roll up to the Federation. Now, the Federation, like I say, the they are really underperforming in this game. But I have a sense that that's about to change. If we look at the map, we can see a real push to the east. We've got cruiser with a prime team, cruiser with a prime team, cruiser with a prime team. I'll just verify that as I pull up 9th and 10th Fleet, but I'm pretty sure, yeah. Whoop, come on over. Cruiser with a prime team and an escort. So that's what's going on here. So these guys are going to continue to push to the east and to the galactic center. The ships are going to continue to explore the backyard. As you can see, these two ships, cruisers with prime teams, are continuing to explore up there. And you have a sort of standing force that's sort of floating around the border with the Tholians. You can see they're exchanging commercial convoys and, of course, continuing to explore as we go. I think that depending on the luck of the rolls, the Federation is going to be able to make up some lost ground here. But as of right now, they are certainly, not behind the 8 ball, but they are definitely not as sort of powerful and potent as they could be. The Lyrans are obviously sending over a diplomat. It'll be interesting to see. Interesting that they have a prime team on board. But so a prime team, a diplomat, and a YCA heading over to what I think is probably going to be the Federation homeworld, and we'll see how that goes. Again, not too much going on with the Federation. They've finished up their diplomatic, or they're continuing their diplomatic operations to improve the attitude of Savannah. I'm assuming they're going to try and make them happy, and then, of course, they're going to move their way to the Carnavan planet here and do the same. I would hope, I would imagine. We can see here on the Lyran side of the map, we have a prime team and R&D team working off the base station to work that wormhole tech. Something to look out for, my Carnavan friends. The Lyrans are working hard on that wormhole tech. It'll be interesting to see how that evolves going forward. We can see here YFESs working their way along the border here. I have a feeling this particular YFES is going to make its way down here and explore the neutral zone. You have up in this corner, just take away the ships for a sec, based on the supply. Let's bring up the supply menu for the Lyrans based on supply 3. So based on supply 3, you can see this is where the bases are. You've got a three YS. So basically all their exploration efforts are moving up to the top of the galaxy here, which is very, very interesting. Not as much of a push to the east, but a big push to the northeast. Interesting. Just for reference, the Klingon faction, of course my head's in the way. Stand by as I move my head to the other side here. The Klingon faction is as far east as Delta 7. Delta 7. If we go back to the Lyran map, there we go. Delta 7 is right there. 1 hex separates that range of supply. So, and from the Riemann side, now you don't see this yet, but there's 3 juicy resources just on the other side of that fog of war. So if the Riemanns are so inclined and the bloods, the bloodthirsty, the thirsty bloodsuckers that they are, they can go forth and reap a bounty on the other side of that fog of war. I just hope the Lyrans are ready for it, because if you get into their business, I'm sure the kitty cats are going to throw a hissy fit as they try and fend you off. Very interesting to see if that goes forward, because again, the Riemanns at this point in this game have the strongest military. All right. So that is the Lyrans, that is the Tholians and the Federation, as well as the rest of the Sinister Seven or the Fertile Crescent. The choice is up to yours. Hey, William is in the chat. Some of my ships aren't in the correct position on this map. Tug is at Lima 9, and there is a YFF with a diplomat at Savannah. Okay. So Savannah... I've got a diplomat at Savannah on my map, but of course no YFF. And then there's he says there is a map ships are on this map. Tug is at Lima 7. So Lima 7. sorry, Lehman 9. I'm an idiot. Lehman 9, there's a tug at Lehman 9 as opposed to it being on November 10. Okay, no problem. It's probably just because the GM had to send that to me sort of hot and fast, so there might be some typos on that map. But for our viewers who aren't players, you can kind of get the picture of what's going on here. YCOM is also heading for the Lyrans. Oh, I see that. Yeah. Okay, let me just pull that up so we can share that with everybody. You can see right here, there is a Y commercial convoy heading towards the Lyrans. One interesting thing that happened in previous campaigns that I didn't necessarily, it didn't make sense to me, but I totally, I see it's not the same here, and I fully support this going forward. In previous campaigns, and I'll switch back here. In previous campaigns, you could only build one commercial convoy at a time, which I never understood. If you can spend the money to get those commercial convoys out, those trade ships, then why can't you reap the reward from it? It would seem that that's not the case here because the Federation have at least 2 commercial convoys, one going north, one going south. And if that's the case, I 150% support that. I think you should be able to build as many commercial convoys as you want to spend money on, knowing that when they arrive on the other end, the economic benefit is for the receiving player, not for the sending player. So if you've got a working relationship with the other faction, you could effectively have a Silk Road of sorts between their capital, your capital, or their trading post and your trading post, and you're just sending ships continually back and forth, and you're making money that way. That would be interesting. That would be very interesting. Maybe that would be an interesting point of trade contention between the Romulans and the Klingons. For that Romulan player that's out there, if we can set up an effective neutral zone, because where that base was being built was not effective for me, if we can negotiate a good neutral zone and then set up a Silk Road trade route of sorts, I think that would be great. 1 per trading partner, I was told. That's what William says. So Bill Litton is the Federation player, William Litton in the chat. He was saying 1 per trading partner. I think, yeah, that's... I think that's worth an interesting discussion for those of us on our Discord channel, for our GM and our players. I think we should have a nice chit chat in the Discord about commercial convoys and how we can maximize that, because setting that up and creating sort of an economic incentive for getting along with each other and protecting trade routes and things like that, I think that is worthwhile having a discussion about, because it could be a point of leverage, or sort of like a powerful point of leverage in the game as we go forward, and it could be disrupted by other players. It could be, there's all sorts of things that could happen there. So I think that would be an interesting point of discussion, but understood as it stands right now, 1 per trading partner at the time. So we'll see how that goes going forward. All right. Well, how long have we been going here? I've got us at an hour and 36 minutes. My goodness. That is... exciting. Yeah, 1 hour, 37 minutes according to the stream on YouTube. So thank you very much, everybody, for staying with us. If you have stayed with us this far, then please consider hitting that big old subscribe button, because this is always something that you like to see. Please feel free to hit that thumbs up, like button if you want to see more of this stuff and help us reach out and sort of connect with the greater YouTube community. As I didn't say it at the beginning of this live stream, but we are focused on creating a community here of players, of folks who want to play these turn-based strategy games, enjoy all things sci-fi and Star Trek, and just looking to create a community of folks who like to have fun with this kind of stuff. If that sounds up your alley, then please, like I say, subscribe, hit the like button. And if you enjoy this type of content, not only the tutorials we put out, for example, right now on combat and reaction movement, but also when it comes to this live stream and this sort of like update on the status of the game, if this is the kind of stuff that you like, then please feel free to consider supporting our need for caffeine here at the channel with the coffee.com/newworlds in the bottom corner over there. Send us a coffee and help support keeping the channel fully stimulated throughout these live streams and, of course, creating content for you. The Hydrans say again, never, never trust a Klingon. Well, with that said, I could go. So I'll end on this note. In this game, in this campaign, the Klingon Empire is based on the Warhammer 40k Alpha Legion. Now, in the pre-Horus Heresy, the Alpha Legion being a loyal legion within the Warhammer 40k world. So if you're not a Warhammer 40k fan, all you need to know is that there is a faction within that universe of these Spartan-esque space marines. And they all have they have 20 different, or 18 different legions, and they all have sort of different personalities. The Alpha Legion is based on subterfuge and espionage, effectively. And one of the things that has recently been sort of published and come out in that content is talking about how the Alpha Legion always lies, or what they say isn't always the truth. And so in that context, this totally makes sense what Jim is saying. Never, never trust a Klingon. Now, of course, in traditional Klingon Star Trek culture, Klingons are sort of ironically honor-bound, warrior, sort of space Vikings kind of thing. Certainly, we're playing into some of that, but also, again, this Alpha Legion stream, which is all about, from the context of this game, it's about intelligence, it's about the control of information, and it's about understanding and controlling that interaction. So if you're a Warhammer 40k fan, I would love to hear your comments below. If you don't know anything about Warhammer 40k and you're like, Alpha Legion, what? Then head over and do a quick Google search and you'll see what I mean. Alfarius is the Primarch, the leader of the Alpha Legion, who has a twin brother known as Omegon. And so we've replicated that in this game with the Alpha being the leader, or the role, the figurehead of the leader of the Klingon Empire. And I have two other twins that exist in this continuity, which is Omicron, who has a different sort of perspective and strategy when it comes to the interaction, and then Gamma, who is the third brother in this interaction. So between Gamma, Omicron, and Alpha, which one do you think is the one controlling and commanding the forces against the Romulans, the one controlling and coordinating stuff on the Carnavan border, or is it some kind of collection? I'll let you know that there is a story and a narrative that'll be shortly coming in our narrative sub-channel in the Discord. And if you want to read that, then please feel free to hit the subscribe or the support button at coffee.com/newworlds to support us monthly and also get in on that Discord channel to see what's going on. All right. I've talked way too much. It's an hour and 41 minutes. I will let you go. Thank you so much for joining us here today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.